What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel and another Outriders video. After the most recent Outriders patch, it does seem as if AP's time in the sun is starting to slowly wane, and the rise of firepower builds is definitely coming back due to the fact of how many AP related builds were affected by the changes that were made during that patch, but so many changes were also made that were quite favorable for firepower. Now today we're going to look at Terminal Velocity, which is a set for the Trickster, which is something that I started building before the patch, and I'm kind of happy I delayed releasing a build, or let's say finalizing the build or getting it to a point where I'm willing to, put a video out on it until after the patch, because it definitely features much stronger now than it felt for me playing it before. And also in a way I kind of feel a little bit more, I would say, tough as well, although that might just be me getting a little bit better at playing the class. That being said, this is a firepower class for the Trickster, which kind of revolves around the mechanic of essentially moving around the map. As long as you are using movement skills, rolling, sprinting, and having borrowed time on, you build up this sort of buffer, this boost of additional damage due to the set bonus that you get from Terminal Velocity. And so the idea is to obviously pair this with skills that allow you to jump around the battlefield and to sort of capitalize on this increased weapon power that you get from this movement. And then the point is just to find yourself a weapon that deals a serious amount of damage and take enemies out. Now, in the playtesting for this, I experimented with submachine guns, I messed around with shotguns, and then I also messed around with LMGs. Those are the three types of weapons. Actually, I'm lying, I also messed around with double guns a little bit. But those are the four kinds of weapons which I thought which were kind of like working a little bit and which made a little bit of sense. But at the same time as well, I wanted to try something that was a little bit different to Shield Beast. I had started working on both of these builds around about the same time. I brought Shield Beast out, of course, before the patch. And so honestly, I felt like something a little bit different, and I wanted to opt for the old school shotgun, automatic shotgun Trickster kind of gameplay that we were used to with previous builds long before Worldslayer came out. Hence the reason why I settled on the shotgun for this and kind of like built myself around this whole close range combat sort of meta, which, well, not meta but style rather, which of course suits the Trickster because it definitely benefits a lot of the Trickster's movement skills and all of that to engage from this range, and obviously makes a whole bunch of sense. Now, when it comes to the build itself, of course, we will look at the weapons first, then we'll look at the armor, we'll talk about the skills, we'll talk about the rotation of those skills and how you should be playing. Even though this is a firepower class, it's a little bit of nuance to this as well. It's not as simple as you would say like blighted rounds techno, for example. We'll talk about some of the choices in the class tree, the Ascension Points you should be going for, and then also, of course, the PAX sort of configuration that you're looking for. But as always, ignore the transmog. This is just still a simple way for me to keep track of my armor sets and everything like that. But of course, we are using 3-piece Terminal Velocity here to try and get that set bonus going. As mentioned, I opted for a shotgun as my weapon of choice, and specifically I have a death shield here which rolls innately with Fortress, and then I have slapped Dark Sacrifice on there, and I managed to get Anomaly Enhancement on the Apocalypse slot here. Now, I think it would have been really spicy, especially after the patch changes, to get Killing Spree on here as well. So that would be like my final sort of weapon that I'm hunting for. It would be insane to get a Death Shield with Killing Spree on, and then Fortress and Dark Sacrifice on there. And but at the moment in time, I'm using Anomaly Enhancement, and any kind of additional anomaly power that gets stacked on there actually translates into a little bit of additional firepower for me. So in a way, this is kind of like a hybrid kind of situation, even though I haven't set my skill tree and also my rest of my gear up for a hybrid situation. It's just, this is the best weapon I could field right now for this particular situation. Now, your secondary and your pistol don't matter at all because this is a firepower build, so you're going to activate twisted rounds and you're going to try and keep twisted rounds on as long as you can, so you won't be switching any weapons. Now, when we get over to the armor itself, I am using 4 pieces of Terminal Velocity actually, and 1 piece of Cannonball. So the cowl of the Terminal Velocity is my first piece here, and of course we are trying to stack as much bonus firepower as we can. Cooldown reduction is really good as well, as is close range damage, because this is the distance at which we're going to be fighting from. Now, Terminal Velocity, the set itself, has a whole bunch of new mods for borrowed time, and borrowed time is definitely a skill that you want to be playing in this build But I'll be honest with you, when I built this and started playing, it was the first time I ever actually used borrow time for longer than 10 seconds. So it has been a learning curve for me to sort of get around it, but a lot of these mods that come with Worldslayer for borrow time actually make borrow time ridiculously good. And so it kind of like, I can't tell what it felt like to use borrow time a lot before. I know a lot of Trickster players swore by it and said it was really, really good shit. I just never gave it the time of day, but it actually works very well with this build, and of course feeds directly into the set bonus. Now let's quickly spend some time on the set bonus. This says, as mentioned before, activating movement skills, you know, like rolling, running around, sprinting, having, well, you have to be sprinting, not just running around, but and having borrowed time active, right, during combat generates anomaly velocity, and you'll see it on your character. You'll start looking basically like Flash as you're running. You'll have all this like blue light coming off of you that boosts your weapon damage up to 80%. Now this has been increased from 60% as it was before the patch, and this decays over time, as they say. Additionally, your roll is replaced by Phantom Dash, which is of course the mod that's on the Cannonball set on the boots. So by default now you don't roll anymore, you always Phantom Dash as long as you have the set bonus, which again just feeds into the whole idea of this build, the aesthetic. It looks really fucking cool. I gotta admit, Phantom Dash is badass looking, even though it doesn't actually produce any iframes or anything like that. But in the case of terminal velocity, as long as you have the set bonus on for that, it actually allows you to pass through enemies, as it mentions there, and so that actually makes the skill pretty damn good. Now, Extermination Protocol is the first mod we're going to talk about here, which has got borrowed, which is a mod for borrow time. And this says you receive a 6% damage bonus against elites every 3 seconds while the skill is active. Bonus stacks up to 30% and is removed when the skill ends. Now, there's going to be some mods we're going to look at that are actually going to extend the time of borrowed time, and that's the point that a lot of the times when you go into, and I'm going to be saying borrow time and time a lot, so I need to figure out how I'm going to do that, but a lot of the instances that you are going into combat, I often find that I have borrowed time up for almost 80 to 90% of the fight. Of course, I switch it on and then I don't activate it to jump back. I actually just keep it running in the background, and you can see it running at the bottom bar as it's slowly, you know, sort of depleting itself. So this is pretty good. Extermination Protocol stacks up to 30% eventually, every 3 seconds until it gets to 30%, and then is removed when you actually, you know, put terminal velocity on cooldown. Well, sorry, when you put borrowed time on cooldown. Sorry, I'm confusing myself here. Then personal space is good on here because this is just a flat 12% bonus to close range weapon damage, which we are going, that's the arena we fight in, so that's all good. And we have Anomaly Echo on here, which gives us a small amount of firepower and a small amount of anomaly power every time when we activate a skill. Now, we are constantly going to be hunting the prey all over the map, because it's also a reload mechanism for us, so you'll generally always have this buff up. And even though it gives us a little bit of anomaly, due to the fact that I am using anomaly enhancement, is actually feeding some of that back for me into firepower again as well. Now, our chest piece has strong twist on it, which is a twisted rounds mod. This just gives you a flat 20% increase to firepower once it's active. I believe this was also buffed. I think it was 15% before. Then we have Gun Shield on here, which says that you'll also get another 15% firepower bonus when that skill is active. So just by turning on Twisted Rounds and Borrowed Time at the same time, you're basically getting a flat 35% increase just like that, as long as both those skills are active. Now, Skull Piercer is a fantastic Twisted Rounds mod as well, which says that while this skill is active, critical damage is increased with every critical shot up to 20%. Bonus resets when the skill ends. Now, that means that as you are shooting stuff with crits with this, you will get up to the 20% point, and then as long as you keep Twisted Rounds for the rest of the fight, you keep that 20%. This means that this becomes very, very good at like bursting bosses or captains, elites, and things like that down. You know, of course, taking care of the fact that you should be hitting crits with that. So that's where my potato aim sometimes comes with a problem, but you know, I try to make it work. Then when we get over to the pants, we have Death Shell on here, another fantastic borrow time mod. This says killing enemies while borrow time is active reduces incoming weapon damage by 10% and anomaly damage by 10% for 10 seconds. And this is removed when you lose borrow time, but this can also stack up to 4 times. So again, the point is that you can, within 10 seconds, you can potentially get to 40% additional damage mitigation, basically, as long as you've killed 4 enemies. So again, stepping into a fight and activating borrow time and then zipping, like, you know, starting to murder out the trash and stuff is instantly gonna, you know, increase your survivability in that fight. So you can sometimes, you know, approach a fight in different ways. Like you can just hunt the prey onto the boss immediately and burst him down while you can, or you can sort of work your way from the side, hit one of the small minions, mop up 3 or 4 guys, get that survivability, and then, you know, sort of wade directly in. Now, radiation jump on here means that when we hunt a prey onto something, that target is affected by vulnerable, which is really, really good for us because it means that we can deal more damage to them. Now, blue blood on here is a mod that I would eventually swap out, but this is honestly the best trousers of terminal velocity that I have found. And in a way it's okay though, because the thing is, it does give us a little bit more healing, a little bit more survivability, and that's always good with a build like this where you are up close, you're constantly in front of guns, you're constantly in melee range where stuff is hitting you. So it's probably not such a bad thing overall. The gauntlets of the cannonball, as I mentioned here, I've taken those because they actually roll with firepower. So usually if we took another terminal velocity piece here, we would get health. So this gives us a little bit more firepower, which is great. And then I have Captain Hunter on here so that we can deal with bosses, elites, and, you know, captains easier. We have instant reload on here, which is our first reload mechanic. And this means that every time we teleport behind something with Hunter Prey, we get a nice full mag. We also have Kingslayer on here, which is a fantastic reward for landing critical shots. If you land a critical shot on an elite, a captain, a boss, or something like that, you're going to see this very, very decent increase to firepower for 10 seconds, which means your follow-up shots are just going to hit that much harder. Then, when our last piece is, of course, the footwear of the terminal velocity, and that's a big mouthful. And this has our second reload mechanic. Now, could we get away with just using instant reload from Hunter Prey? Yes, absolutely. But I feel like I'm more consistent by having a backup one, because this allows me to decide whether I want to Hunter Prey onto an enemy or not. If I think it's too dangerous to Hunter Prey now into a group of enemies, but I need ammo, then this is just another way for me to actually get ammo back, and that's the reason why I like it. So this basically says that when you kill enemies, you also get 30% of your ammo back, which is fantastic. I am using shotguns, so of course buckshot shells make sense here. So this gives us 12% increased shotgun weapon damage, so good stuff. And then last but certainly not least, we have Sharp Eye on here, which just means further on another way for us to capitalize on critical shots. So when we get into a situation where we are going to fight, again, you will basically one tap, at most 2-tap most enemies. So captains, elites, and bosses are the only ones where you'll really have to focus, get those crit shots. But once you do, it'll be hella rewarding because you'll be dealing a shitload of damage. Now, talking about the skills in the rotation, of course, as mentioned, we use Hunter Prey, we use Borrow Time, and we use Twisted Rounds. Now, unlike what we see with Shield Beast, where we have this sort of like ramp up mechanic at the beginning where you try to like frame the correct amount of anomaly power so you can lock in a good value on your Twisted Rounds and then start fighting, this plays like old school Trickster. So right off the rip, when the battle starts, switch your Twisted Rounds on and get to work. So in this case, what I do is if I'm just mopping up trash, I'll switch on Twisted Rounds, I'll Hunter Prey onto the first guy, I'll fucking murder him, and then I'll start working my way through the crowd. When it gets a little bit spicy, or I need to ramp up my damage, ramp up my survivability, I'll go Borrow Time and I'll start using that. Now, in the case of fighting a boss or a group of big enemies or a bunch of tough guys, then what I'll do is I'll go Twisted Rounds, immediately activate Borrow Time, jump into the biggest guy, take him down, and then start working from there. The bottom line is Borrow Time is a fantastic way for you to increase your damage. It's a fantastic way for you to increase damage mitigation. And once you get good at it so that you can do the kind of thing where you activate Twisted Rounds, you activate Borrow Time, you jump from the safety of where you are into a difficult area, kill 3 or 4 enemies, and then when it looks like you're about to get fucking clapped, you hit Borrow Time and it pulls you back out again. You can do really, really crazy space ninja kind of vibes like that, and it really, really is awesome. It is a way that I have never played the Trickster. I've always just used Hunter Prey. I've never used this like, you know, rewind shit. So it is actually quite entertaining, and it's a completely different way to play. Having spent almost 4 weeks now playing exclusively AP, or almost exclusively AP, this is really, really cool. So we also have super, super low cooldowns on here. So we have a below 5-second Hunter Prey, we have a below 5-second Borrow Time, and we have an 11.3-second Twisted Round. So even if you fuck up the reload and you don't actually make it, you only really have to kill time for like 10 seconds until you get your bullets back, and then you're good to go. Now, looking at the class tree itself, because this is firepower, we are going top tree, 100% top tree. And let me quickly take my face away here. However, if we wanted to build some kind of weird fucking hybrid where we ended up in the middle here and wanted to incorporate some deception skills or something like that, because we certainly have the weapon that supports something like that with anomaly enhancement, or better yet, if we wanted to go a little bit top and a little bit bottom, something like that, that is something that you could potentially work into. Although this for me has been the most effective way that I've found to essentially run this. So we are going to go along here. We're going to pick up as much, you know, weapon damage as we can. We definitely grab ourselves Shotgun Master. We dip down here to get us some more. So with the Trickster, the top tree, you have a combination of nodes that give you weapon damage, and you have a combination of nodes that give you close range weapon damage. In my case, I pick both of those up because, again, most of our fighting happens in the close range type. So then when we get to about here, we're going to pick up Arms Trick. We quickly dip down to get Outrider Executioner, because both of those skills, Hunter Prey and what's his name, Borrow Time, they actually will allow us to activate this 35% additional weapon damage for 8 seconds. And we'll be using both of those, especially Hunter Prey, a lot, so you can kind of make sure that you always have this buff up. We continue on down here, picking up, you know, additional damage from behind, which is great. When you hunt the prey and behind someone, you'll have like a 1 or 2 second window, maybe not quite that long, but it feels that long that you'll be able to fill their back with some buckshot, so that's good shit. Here we double down and we pick up the weapon damage node, and we pick up the close range weapon damage mode. We keep going here, we get some more damage from behind. We absolutely get Bounty Hunter, which increases our weapon damage by 15% against elites. We give ourselves a bigger magazine size here. We get ourselves shotgun weapon damage by 12%, and we absolutely get Cold Calculation, which says that for each enemy in close range, your weapon damage is increased by 8%. So that means that when you jump into like a group with 8 guys or something like that, you are at your most dangerous, because you're going to have this massive upsurge of close range weapon damage, and you should absolutely use that. Or rather, you're just going to have a whole bunch of weapon damage because you're in close range, but you guys get what I'm saying. Then when we go the way that we've gone here, we have 2 points left. With those 2 points, the sky is the limit. You can get yourself a little bit more armor piercing if you want here. You can grab yourself, you can grab yourself some cooldown reduction here for this, if that's something that you want to do. You can get yourself some more resistance piercing down if you go this way, grab a little bit of anomaly power. I instead opted to give myself a little bit of HP and a little bit of resistance against elites, essentially taking 20% less damage from them, which is great. Now, specifically looking at the PAX tree, and I think I can bring my face back, maybe, yes. We are going to be going pretty much the same way that I set up Shield Beast when I released that video. So we definitely get damage, which says damage damaging enemies with damage skills increases your damage by 10%. That's damage like 3 times in one sentence. Holy shit. So absolutely, we are using, of course, twisted rounds. So whenever we shoot someone with twisted rounds, this buff activates. So adaptation here says activating skills grants you 15% anomaly or firepower, depending on which one of them is higher. Our firepower is far higher than our anomaly, so every time when we hunt the prey, we get this nice little boost here. Then we have phasing, which says activating skills grants you 15% shield and 10% shield to allies. This is pretty cool. It means that when you play in a group, every time when you borrow time, every time when you hunt the prey, you give your buddies a little bit of shield, and you also give yourself some. Then we absolutely get harrowing, which says increases your resistance piercing by 10%. Each enemy in close range increases the bonus by 2% up to an additional 10%. So again, just a way for us to get a little bit more additional resistance piercing. Now, Spectral Spike is the cream right here, and this is something that is phenomenal on this build, and actually also received a buff from that patch. Damaging skills have a 100% chance to deal additional damage equal to 15% of your anomaly power. Now, consecutive triggers on the same enemy stack, dealing more damage up to 750%, and you can build up each one of these stacks every half a second, essentially. Now, we don't have a whole bunch of anomaly power on this, but we do have a few ways in which it actually increases ever so slightly. Like, for instance, what we get from Anomaly Echo there. Now, is there a version of this build that could benefit, for instance, from running something like Fortress and not Dark Sacrifice, but rather Mage's Rage and Anomaly Enhancement? Sure, I've tested that as well, and that in combination of potentially chopping the top here and the bottom here in half and taking the best of both worlds is for sure something that looks interesting to me, and I need to further test, but those are also some options that are available to you. So then last but surely not least, we get over to the Ascension Points. Now, I don't have a shit ton of Ascension Points on my Trickster yet. I think it's the class that I've played the least so far out of all of them, so I'm definitely slacking. But absolutely pick yourself up some additional anomaly damage here. Your first 10 points should absolutely be going here. Then what I did is my next 10 went to weapon damage, my 10 after that went to close range damage, and then I started giving myself a little bit of survivability with health and armor. But I also remembered to just pick up the additional 5.5% damage increase against elites, because those are the ones that give you the biggest amount of trouble, and definitely the ones that you should be dealing with first. That right there brings us to the end of the build as well as the video. Let me know in the comments down below if you prefer. I think Shield Beast is probably still the superior firepower build that's available right now, having also not really been affected that terribly much by the patch. Of course, Mage's Rage took a massive hit to the head, but nonetheless, I think with the correct framing of your anomaly power, and then of course the fact that you're essentially double dipping when you play Shield Beast, you'll probably still deal a crap load of damage. But this certainly is a very interesting way of playing Trickster, and I've been having a lot of fun with it, and I look forward to testing some other different variations of this. I definitely think there's a world where this with like something like double gun or submachine gun absolutely fucking shreds, and that's absolutely something that I'll check out. Let me know what you would change in this build, how you would improve this. Have you been playing with terminal velocity? I believe that there's probably you know, a way that you can combine this into pistol play as well, or something like that. But absolutely, I think the sky is the limit with this build, and it definitely does seem, as I said at the very beginning of this video, that firepower builds are starting to be on the rise now again, due to the fact that AP has kind of like really been, especially on certain classes like Pyro, really been hit hard by the status nerf, by the cooldown reduction nerf, by the Mage's Rage fucking fix, and you know, things like convection and all of that. So definitely firepower is absolutely probably one of the safer choices to go for now if you want to deal decent damage and not struggle too much. But that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. It's just super important to me that you have a fantastic morning, afternoon, and evening wherever you are in the world. And until next video, fucking cheers.
They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me.